Hi, Nick Mason here. I wanted to do a video today talking about a subject that I've had a lot of experience with, drumsticks. More specifically, the manufacturing end of drumsticks and how they go from a tree to on the shelf for us as a consumer to buy, and sort of the quality control steps that are in between there. One thing that I've seen over and over and over again in the drumming community is people saying, hey, I bought a pair of insert your favorite brand of drumsticks, and they broke right away. Is their quality going down? Or these sticks were lighter than the last batch I got. Has their quality been slipping for a while? I've seen this for as long as I've been drumming. For years and years and years, decades at this point. I've seen the same question asked over and over and over and over again. So I want to address that. Also, brief history. You might be asking, Nick, you're just a generic rock drummer. What do you know about the business end of drumsticks? Well, before I was a full-time professional generic rock drummer, I actually worked for Regal Tip Drumsticks. It is the only real day job I've ever had in my life. I was hired by them just as I was graduating from college, and I was their artist relations manager from about 2004 to 2007. So roughly a 3-period time that I worked there. And I quit that company to then pursue playing music full time, which I've done since 2007. So my background qualifies a bit because the manufacture of drumsticks has remained largely unchanged for 60 plus years at this point. They're still cutting and matching drumsticks pretty close to the way they did back in the 1950s when brands like Regal Tip and Firth started popping up. Not too much has changed in the way of the technology and how it's done now. Even though my experience is almost 20 years ago at this point, most of the companies are still making the sticks the exact same way. So how this works is a drum manufacturer, and I'll try to keep this part of the video brief, because I think most of you understand tree grows in the ground, tree is cut down, tree is turned into a drumstick, right? Most of the companies will have contracts with tree farms. It's a farm that just grows trees. It's where we get lumber from lumber yards and things like that as well. I mean, the tree has to grow somewhere, right? So a company like Promark or Firth or Vater or whoever else, they will have their supplier, their wood supplier, which will come from a lumber yard or a tree farm. Regal Tip, we had contracts directly with farms. And we would get hickory, which is the most common wood for drumsticks, and maple. And some companies like Promark also do oak. So we would get the wood supplied from there. The wood will come in either long, round wooden dowels, or some companies get them as blanks, which is like a wooden dowel except for it's a flat kind of rectangular shape, right? The wood, when it gets to the drumstick company, is then dried in a kiln. And what this is, it's kind of like an oven. It bakes the wood, but it does it slowly, because if you suck the moisture out of the wood too quickly, the wood will bend and warp. and that does not make a good drumstick. We want our drumsticks to be as perfectly straight as possible. So you have to do it slowly. You have to dry the wood and take the moisture out slowly so it doesn't warp. Now, every company will bring the moisture content of their wood down to a specific level that they deem acceptable. How much moisture is in a stick from Vater might be different from Promark, but they have their own set of parameters where they say our moisture content in our wood needs to be at X level. From there are two ways to cut a drumstick. One is using a back knife lathe, which is kind of the old school way of doing it. I believe Vater still does it this way. At the time that I worked at Regal Tip, we did it this way as well. And then the other method is using a grinder, which does exactly what you would think it does. You put the wood in it and it grinds it into the shape of the drumstick that you want. Regal Tip did eventually switch over to using grinders in 2019. The benefit from a grinder versus a knife. The knife, you put the wood in, it looks like a giant sewing machine and it spins the wooden dowel really fast, and a knife that is in the shape of the drumstick you want, it has the profile of the stick you want, comes in and cuts the wood as it spins and shapes the drumstick. A grinder works similarly. You put the stick in and it grinds it down to the shape of the stick. Now, grinders have a benefit of the sticks coming out more consistent. So they will actually look nicer. They will be more consistent from one to one in terms of shape, in terms of the profile, not the weight, not the grain, just the shape of the drumstick. The actual profile of the stick will be more consistent with a grinder. With a lathe, as it's cutting, it can splinter things, it can pick up little burrs and stuff like that. So the stick just isn't as consistent when it's cut that way. After a stick's cut, they will then sometimes use a wood filler, which coats the stick. The sticks at Regal Tip, we actually dipped them in this liquid. It looked kind of like liquid paper mixed with sawdust almost. And then it would dry on there and the stick would be very, very rough. Think of a drumstick that you've been playing and chopping at your hi-hats with and how rough that gets and chewed up that gets. The stick looks like that after it's put in the wood filler. And then it's taken to a giant belt sander where it smooths it all out. So any imperfections in that wood have been filled in by that wood filler. From then they go to a finishing process where the sticks are coated with a light lacquer. Now, companies like Promark and Firth and Vater, they use a very, very thin, silky kind of finish on their sticks. It's very light. Regal Tip used to use a very thick lacquer on their sticks, which gave them this glossier, shinier coating. And it also helped with grip, right? Having a thicker finish on there. How that was done was the sticks were hung from a conveyor belt. It would dip them into this big vat of lacquer and then up and would go through a dryer. And again, it would dry it slowly so that way the stick wouldn't warp. And that's where you get the famous black dot on the bottom of a Regal Tip drumstick, because that's just a piece of nylon that was used to hang the stick. So it would stick out about that far, it would go on the conveyor belt, and then they would just cut it off, but part of it was left over. It's stuck in the bottom of the stick about a 1/4 inch in. That's all it is, a little piece of nylon. So after the sticks are finished, then they are taken to the next stage, which is where they're printed, right? You get the name stamped on them. And then they have to be matched. And this is the big thing that I wanted to talk about, because this makes all the difference in what us on the consumer end get in our hands. When a stick is cut, every company decides for themselves what the ideal weight of that particular model should be. So they'll look at their 5A and they'll say, we believe a 5A should weigh X amount of grams. And we believe that a 5B should weigh X amount of grams. So that is what they would consider to be their zero weight, right? Now the drumsticks, after they're sanded and they're finished, they go and they calibrate their weight to be the zero weight for that particular model drumstick. The sticks then come down a conveyor belt, they are lifted up and they are weighed. And every stick that weighs the exact ideal zero weight is then shot into a bin that says 0 on it. Now, because it's wood, it's an organic material. It grows out of the ground. It's like a snowflake. No two are going to be alike. So I could cut 100 pairs of 5B and I could get very drastic different weights because it's just a piece of wood. It's porous, it's got grain, it's not going to be the same weight just because it's the same shape, okay? And so the zero weight will get the majority of the sticks. Because of the shape, the zero weight will get the majority of the sticks, but you might get one that weighs 1 gram heavier or 1 gram lighter. So what we did at Regal Tip was we had our zero weight and then we had 10 bins that were all negative and 10 bins positive. So if we said, and I'm making this number up, but if we said 5B should ideally weigh 58 grams, we'd set our zero weight at 58, we'd weigh all the 5Bs, every 58 gram drumstick would get shot into that zero bin, but if it was 59, it would go in the +1 bin. If it was 57, it'd go in the -1 bin. You will get a lot of sticks that will be 1, 2, 3, 4 grams heavier, and the same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grams lighter. As you get past the 5 bins, you got fewer and fewer drumsticks, because you're not going to find too many that are going to weigh 5, 6, 7 grams heavier than the zero weight, or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 grams lighter than the zero weight. We would also take all of the bins that were -5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we take whatever sticks got shot into those, and we would automatically say these are too light to be this particular drumstick. So we would then sell those as B stock. With Regal Tip, it was called JoJo. Many companies all have their B stock. Sound Percussion, Nova, Goodwood, LA Special. Those are all B stock, right? So those sticks are either too light to make the cut, or something else is wrong with them. Maybe there's an impurity in the wood and there's knots in it, or the grain is crossed a weird way where it's going to warp pretty quickly, or maybe the stick itself after it was cut warped because more moisture was released from it as it was cut. So imperfections become B stock. So everything from about the -4, -5 weight up will then pass and go on to the next level of quality control. Usually the next level of quality control is making sure the sticks are straight. Sometimes they do that even before they weigh them. They make sure all the sticks are straight. You can do this many ways. You can do it with a big flat table. Some companies use two metal pipes that you roll the stick down the pipes and you can see if it wobbles. Some people even use a laser, where as they roll the stick, if it wobbles, it'll touch the laser, all right, which means that stick is not straight. Sticks that are not perfectly straight, again, go to B stock. And then the ones that pass and that are perfectly straight go on to the next round of quality control. So the next round is where they sort them into pairs. Now what they'll do is they'll go to each bin for the weights. So they'll take the +1 bin, so all the sticks that weighed 1 gram heavier than the zero weight, and they will sort them and match them according to the color of the wood and the grain. They want to make sure that this stick and this stick match as closely as possible. So they would take them from the same weighted bin. So that way, if this one was 57 grams, this one's going to be 57 grams also. Now, sometimes there's a little leniency in that. Some companies will weigh per gram. Some companies will allow a gram different. So this could be 58 and this one could be 57. And some companies would even go 2 grams and go, this one could be 58 and this one could be 60, right? They could go a 2 gram difference. But anything more than that, and it gets to be very noticeable, so they won't allow, they won't allow this gram and this gram to be 3 or 4 grams apart. Some companies will also match their sticks according to pitch. Now, Regal Tip didn't do that, but most other companies do, and where that really makes a difference is with marching percussion. Not as much on drum set, but on marching percussion, it makes a huge difference. So that's where they would actually take all of the sticks of one particular weight, and they would actually get the pitch of the wood, and then when they match it according to the grain and the color, they would also make sure that it matches in pitch to the one that they're going to pair it to. So once they have the sticks paired, they get the sleeves put on and they go on the shelf. And they don't immediately go to the stores. They go on the shelf at the company. Before they are sent to stores, they are packaged in either pairs of 6 or pairs of 12. So like a brick of drumsticks would be 12 pairs, right? Well, they're not going to take all of the ones from the same weight. They intentionally mix up the weights so that a brick of sticks will have a variety of different weighted pairs. So you might get a brick of 5As, and you might get some in that brick that are from the 0 bin, some that are from the +2 bin, some that are from the -3 bin. They mix them up and they make a variety pack out of them. Even though they're all 5As, there's a variety of different weighted pairs in there. And that is so when they go on the shelf at your favorite drum store, there's a variety to choose from. And then we as the consumer get to pick which ones we want, okay? So if you like all of your sticks to be a certain weight, what I recommend doing is going to your favorite drum shop and pulling whatever pairs they have of your favorite model drumstick off the shelf and checking them. Check the weight. Take the sleeve off, maybe give it a little tap on the counter, right? And see if you like that. And if it feels too light, put the sleeve back on, set it aside. Or if it feels too heavy, put the sleeve back on, set it aside. When you find the ones that you like, put that in the I'm buying this pile, right? Now, what happens is when you get people doing that, then a lot of the time what's left on the shelf at the store is the ones that other people didn't want. And then when you walk in, that might be the only thing they have left. The other way this gets kind of messy is online shopping. If you're buying off of Sweetwater or GuitarCenter.com or whatever, well, they're not checking the weights of the sticks before they send them to you. You buy a pair of sticks off Amazon, they're just going to go to their shelf, grab a pair, throw it in the box, and send it to you. They're not going to check to see if it's a heavy pair or a light pair, okay? So you're just getting randomly whatever. I, as an artist for Regal Tip, used to request the heaviest ones they would have. Okay, so that would guarantee, I thought, that all of the sticks I got were a heavier weight. The problem is, if they don't have enough of those in stock, then I'm kind of left with what they do have. Or if another artist had already called and put an order in ahead of me for the same model drumstick, and they also wanted the heaviest ones possible, well, they got them first and I got what was left over. As a result, I'd get a box of sticks that all felt way lighter than the last shipment I got. It didn't have anything to do with the quality. It didn't mean that their wood supplier was giving them bad lumber. It didn't mean that their quality control was slipping. It just meant that somebody else got the weight of the sticks that I wanted first. That's it. It's one of the reasons that I also switched to aluminum drumsticks. There is more consistency here because it's machined and manufactured. And even Ahead Drumsticks prints the weight. So my drumsticks specifically weigh 53 grams, and I can get 200 of these, and I know that they're all going to weigh 53 grams. I don't have to worry about this one was really heavy, and then when I pulled another pair out of the box, that pair was much lighter because they ran out of the heavier ones, right? So the big takeaway from this is no, quality of your favorite brand of drumsticks is probably not slipping and going downhill. It has to do with what supply was available at the time you ordered them or bought them. What was left on the shelf, what was left in the warehouse, what was left at the manufacturer's warehouse before it was shipped to a distributor or a store. Okay? Sometimes people like myself who are an artist for them just get picky and say, I want all of my sticks to be this particular weight. And as an artist, they would give you priority of that. Well, if somebody calls up and says, I need 200 pairs of 5Bs for this tour I'm going on, and I want them all to be the heavier weight ones, well, all that's going to be left in the warehouse is the ones that didn't make the weight cutoff for that particular person. And then those are the sticks that have to get shipped to a store, right? So the consumer is getting what's left a lot of the time. That doesn't mean they're going to be bad. That doesn't mean you're not going to get heavyweight ones. It just means that it's the luck of the draw based on who else is buying the same drumstick you like. So hopefully this clears things up a little bit. I know it's kind of a long video. Please feel free to reach out to me with questions. Of course, do the YouTube thing. Leave a comment in the bottom, like it, subscribe, share with your friends, all of that nonsense. And hopefully this was informative. Thanks.